Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Hina Gambhir. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will be presenting Budget 2022 on 1st of February, just a few days away. It will be her fourth budget as the Finance Minister of the country and second budget amid COVID pandemic. There are two crucial factors, viewers, that could influence this budget of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. One is Omicron-led third wave of COVID that India is facing right now. And second, assembly elections in 5 crucial states, including a very important state like Uttar Pradesh. So will it be a budget with an eye on elections? Should we expect a populist budget with promises and subsidies like it has happened in the past many a times? Can middle class expect some tax relief this time? So what could be Finance Minister's Budget 2022? Let's find out, and our focus today is how important this budget is going to be as far as the middle class is concerned. What is it that the middle class really can look forward to from Budget 2022 of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on 1st of February. Joining us on the broadcast this evening is Monica Hallan, who is author and adjunct professor, NISM, a very well-known face as far as the personal finance subject is concerned. We are also joined by Bimal Jain, Chair, Indirect Tax, PhD, Chamber of Commerce, and Managing Director, A to Z Tax Corp LLP. We are joined by Amit Singhania, Senior Partner, Direct Tax, Shardul Amarchand Mangalas, joining us this evening. And we will also be joined by Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, National Vice Chairman, NAREDCO. I appreciate all of you for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Ms. Monica Hallan, I want to begin this discussion with you. Like I mentioned, there are two factors that can influence the budget this time. One is, of course, the third wave of COVID that we are in. And second, the assembly elections in 5 crucial states. Many are calling it an election budget. What is it that you are looking forward to in this budget of the Finance Minister?
I understand that a lot of people are thinking that this is going to be an election budget, but a lot of what the government has done in the past is telling me that that is not how the government is going to be looking at this budget. I think the pressures really are on trying to put money into the hands of consumers to give a consumption boost. So what has happened really is that people who have had capital have done extremely well through the pandemic, but the incomes at the bottom half have really suffered. And unless that consumption comes back, the recovery that we are seeing will stagger. So I think the maths which will be going on is where do you find the money, and then how do you give it to the people so that they actually go out and spend rather than be risk averse and save it. So I am not certain that for 1 or 2 assembly election states, they are going to derail an entire union budget, because there are very, very big battles to fight ahead, which is to get the economy back on track. So government spending, capital expenditure, is going to do that bridge between the stalled growth and the private sector investment coming in. So, where do you find that money to continue with capital expenditure and find a way to put money in people's pockets? And remember that the organized sector, which actually pays the income tax, is a very, very small fraction. So out of 1.3 billion people, the data that I have, 15 million pay taxes. Less than 7% pay tax of more than 1.5 lakh. So the tax burden is falling disproportionately on the people who are caught in the tax net. And unfortunately, the people who do not declare their incomes, they have found ways to get out of the tax net over and over again. So my sense is a greater push from the finance minister in what I call tax democracy, so that the people who are not paying their fair share are also brought in. So really, I'm not looking at it like a populist budget with an eye on the elections. I think they're trying to boost consumption.
Okay, so two important takeaways from what you've said, Ms. Monica. One is that there is a need to find out ways to put money into people's pockets because low purchasing power is definitely a cause of concern right now. Second, there's also a need to find ways now to widen the tax net so that when there is some kind of a balance, the burden won't be on just a few taxpayers that we have in our country. You told us that it's about 15 odd million people who pay taxes as of now. Those are very important points you've raised. But Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, what is your view? Because, we can't really ignore the fact that this budget is coming at a time when India is going to have assembly elections in 5 crucial states, out of which 4 are with the BJP right now. And going by how things have been in the past, ahead of UP elections specifically, the kind of freebies or announcements that were made, the expectation is that probably this time as well, something for sure can be expected. What's your sense?
If I've seen what has happened to this government and the leadership that is there, if they are not looking at the elections very closely and if the finance minister is not focusing on elections also, I think I would change my name. So I don't agree at all that this is not going to be an election budget. But there is a possibility that you could do a win-win, which I do believe may happen in this case. One, to being able to see to it that the electorate and the people, and you have much more money going into the hands of the people. I think a lot more money is likely to go in terms of expenditure. On the side of the income side, I see that the GST collections have definitely risen and they have risen quite well. So I think that's a positive sign in terms of it. My gut feel tells me, and I could be totally wrong, is that I think they are going to go much more for deficit financing this time, because those indications were given to us both by the RBI governor as well as the finance minister and the other people from the finance ministry. I think it was the economic advisor which talked about it, that this is not the year in which we have to worry about the deficit financing. So you're going to get a win-win situation wherein people will have more money in their pockets, as well as there will be sufficient in terms of capital investment. Look at the side of the roads. We are now doing 35 kilometers of roads. And how is it funded? Not necessarily by the budget. They are doing REITs, they are working in terms of raising and putting all these things into the public domain. LIC is going into the public domain, so you're going to get money from that. Your other companies are also, Air India is going, I believe tomorrow, into the marketplace in terms of handing over to Tatas. So I think this time there will be a balance between the two. Yes, there will be a sale to the electorate and to the poor and the direct money transfer. At the same time, because of the increase in it, we will be able to balance a bit of both. But not being an election budget, I doubt.
Okay, so we've got two very interesting views here. Of course, today's show is specifically for the middle class, so we'll go into the details of what can be done and what should be done in just a bit. Let me also take the opening comments from Mr. Bimal Jain. What is your point of view? Because, when it comes to the indirect tax, we see a lot happening, towards the second half of the budget speech, and that comes as a huge surprise. For example, this year, petrol and diesel price has been a big concern. So do you see maybe, with elections in 5 states, that can be tinkered with slightly, excise duty on fuel?
My view is that when we look at GST collection, which is happening, and it is growing a month-on-month basis, and trade and industry is expecting that 5 specified petroleum products which are kept out of GST must be included into GST. The problem is that if we pay pre-GST taxes on petroleum product, credit is not available. Cascading of taxes comes in supply chain of goods and services. And this is creating problem and bottleneck for competitiveness, domestic manufacturing, either for the goods sector or service sector. And whatever we are hearing from the center and state, they are, fighting for their own pie of revenue. what we would be expecting from trade, industry and commerce, that these 5 specified petroleum products, even if it is not included, at least they can provide a roadmap to us by when they are including 5 specified petroleum products into GST, because these 5 specified petroleum products are required for supply of goods and supply of services both together. And once it is included in GST, cascading will go away. Competitiveness will come to the domestic manufacturing and supply chain. And we will get more capital out in the hands of businessmen. They can deploy this money for their growth and development. So what I look at from Honorable Finance Minister, at least a roadmap, even if it is not included for the time being, but at least a roadmap by when they can include 5 specified petroleum products into GST.
Okay, so that's something that you'll be watching out for. Amit Singhania, as far as the issue of direct tax is concerned, that's going to be very, very crucial. Now, we know that GST collection has been pretty encouraging. On the other hand, even the other tax collection has been pretty encouraging this time. Maybe that's why we did not even see, an extension of the date of filing income tax return for, salaried class happening. Do you think probably a direct tax code is something that we can expect, or is it too early to, expect a direct tax code from this government?
Look, my take is that the country is dealing with a fiscal deficit of 6.8%. So considering the past history of India, 6.8% is not a very large number where the government is going to rethink about its expenditure. Our net tax revenue collection is 73.5% of the budgeted estimate for the whole financial year. So in terms of the revenue collection also, the country is in a comfortable zone. So all these are the indicators, coupled with the fact that the divestments are in line. LIC IPO is still in the pipeline. The other divestments are also still in the pipeline. FDI from the foreign direct investment point of view also, we are in a comfortable zone. So all these factors does indicate that there is some headroom that the government can leverage in terms of giving the cash or giving the money back to the middle class. So in terms of the direct tax budgetary announcement, I would expect some liberal announcement from the Honorable Finance Minister. This is the time to give back some money, some kind of concession, some kind of rebate to the middle class, and maybe this budget may set the tone for the next elections.
Okay. Ms. Monica Haller, now with encouraging tax collections, do you see room for at least some tinkering with the tax slab, something which is due for a very long time?
So I will answer that question just in a moment. I want to take on Mr. Hiranandani's point that it's going to be an election budget. Now, the thing is that suppose the government does want to put money in the hands of the people, any government would find it difficult to restrict that to 5 states. So any benefit which comes will go to everybody. So we can clothe it and say this is an election budget, but my analytics tells me that it is going to be a consumption boost budget. And so you can say, yeah, okay, well, that's what, see, they've given it away. But are they giving it away for the election, or are economists informing the government that unless we do this, growth is going to stall? So I'm going to park that and come back to your question to say, what sort of, what kind of tax base is there for the middle class? I think the first off, we have 11 slabs right now. It needs to go back to 3. This whole compliance with 11, every 2.5 lakh, there is a new slab. We just need simplicity in the entire tax system. And at the highest marginal rate, it is 42.7. That is comparable to highest marginal tax rates in, say, Switzerland or some of the other European countries, with none of those social security sort of benefits that they give. So I think, yes, the rich need to be taxed because especially of the pandemic. But the signaling, when you do a top marginal tax rate of 42.7 because of the surcharge, 37% surcharge, 2% cess, is that we are going to penalize you if you create wealth here. So then people start looking for structures outside of the country, the super rich. So somewhere I think that rationalization of the desire to tax the rich and try and find ways to benefit the middle class, which is really struggling with things like inflation and taxes. This little pool of people who are caught because they are part of this still very small organized sector. I just want the government to find a way to expand the tax net. People who can afford luxury goods, who can afford various things, and they pay by cash, there has to be a way to get them into the tax net so that everybody can pay their fair share. It does not fall disproportionately on the people who cannot escape it.
Okay, Dr. Hiranandani, clearly there is a view that there is need to widen the tax net so that the burden doesn't fall on just a few people in the country. Now, talking about the rate and the rate structure specifically that we have, if you look at the highest tax rate that eventually a person pays in India today is more than the corporate tax rate, something that hasn't happened in years. Do you think there is scope for correction there?
I think looking at the tax collections from individuals and other people, and those people who have to go into compliance, I think they should bring down the maximum tax rate to 25% across the board. The persons who are investing from abroad and FDI, FFI, IS, they're paying far lower rates of tax to us. So what has happened, an individual today, if he earns higher income, he has to go into the guise of go to the consultants and try to find out structures which will actually reduce his tax. Nothing wrong with the consultants, but there's certainly something wrong with the system which forces you to make manipulations in order to reduce your tax income. This is ridiculous. And a person who comes from abroad and invests, he doesn't pay higher tax. Our local person earning more, individuals will pay higher tax. I think we need to bring down the rate. This is going to bring about bigger collection and higher income returns for the government than a higher rate of tax where people are trying to avoid showing the income that is there. So I think we need to rationalize taxes, not only for what the other parts of it, which Monica ji has talked about, but also the fact that lower rates of tax will bring about higher amount of compliance. The other part of it, which Monica mentioned, is correct. We think we need to reduce the number of levels that we are talking about. And also there are certain segments where we think the benefits which have been stuck for a long time, we need to again change. For example, interest on home loans have been for last 10, 15 years, 2 lakhs of rupees. Now we all know house prices have gone up, loans are being taken. People are borrowing 90% amount for their house buying. That is required for it. With the COVID situation, people need to buy their houses and other things. So I think these type of benefits which are there for the persons to buy a house and shelter, I think becomes extremely important for us to rationalize this type of tax structure which is there. This, I think, can be done because today, for instance, it is proved that lowering the rates of tax, whether corporate tax and other taxes, the revenue returns are there. For example, let's take the case of stamp duty in the case of Maharashtra government. They reduced it by 60% and the stamp duty collection zoomed up. So tremendously, 3x the amount of stamp duty collection. So the revenue actually shot up by giving the benefit. Similarly, I feel if this 42% rate, which Monica ji has talked about, comes down to 25%, your collection will double, not reduce over here. So this bureaucracy in the government needs to understand that reducing and rationalizing tax rates is imperative if you want to improve your collection further. And the corporate rates has shown it, GST rates have shown it, that if you rationalize the rates, collections go up.
Okay, very interesting. Ms. Monica, do you see this concern within the government with the kind of statements that have been made that, probably time has come to, rationalize the tax slabs that we have right now, too many tax slabs that we have, the direct tax code that is pending for a very long time?
I think they are deferring it for the direct tax code for them to work through this. I am not certain why they are not rationalizing the 11 slabs down. If it's been tried that you lower the personal income tax rate and compliance did not happen earlier, but this was before big tech, big data. If capacity has been built with technology to track incomes through the expenditures made, then it is worth the experiment in the government to reduce the personal income tax rate and then actually catch the expenditure which is not matching with your income levels, and then have the ability to penalize very heavily people who have evaded or ignored the taxes. So I think with the capacity which has been built using technology and the whole mobile Aadhaar bank account linkage, it is probably now possible to track disproportionate income and expenditure. So it could be that we are on a threshold of trying this out one more time, because it has been tried earlier and we all know where cash goes. It goes into gold, it goes into real estate. But that time is now beginning to change. So my fervent hope is that the capacity is there to track disproportionate expenditure on incomes.
Okay. Amit Singhania, now, as far as the limit of ATC is concerned, do you see that getting changed this time? It hasn't been changed since last 7 years. And as Dr. Hiranandani just now mentioned that, how the cost of a home has gone up, but the relief that we get under ATC specifically, that hasn't really changed. On either the interest component, there has been any change, and neither on the the principal component that's there in our tax sheet. Do you see that happening this time?
Definitely. And this has been the wish list for the past budget sessions also. This particular limit of 0.5 lakh has been there for quite some time. And now this is a case to increase this particular limit to at least 3 lakhs annually. Not only the increase, but my wish list would be to divide this particular ATC into multiple parts. As of now, the ATC is consuming so many social security schemes, whether it's a LIC, whether it's a pension fund. This is a consolidated limit. So I think rationally, we need to divide this ATC into multiple parts, or in case the finance minister thinks that it's going to complicate the already complicated legislation, at least into 2 parts. One is the long-term saving and one is the short-term saving, and prescribe an independent limit for both these schemes, short-term saving scheme as well as the long-term saving scheme. This is going to encourage the long-term saving in the longer run. Specify a tolerance limit, specify a reasonable limit, so that the consolidated limit should be enough for the people to avail it. And as well as incentivize people to avail long-term, to go for a long-term scheme like LIC or the pension fund. Yes, definitely this is the year in which this particular limit should be increased.
Okay, Bibal Jain, what is your point of view? I know it's about direct tax, but any views on the issue of ATC, the limit?
Of course, yes, and it must be allowed. It must be increased from 1.5 to 3 lakh rupees. See what happened. Unless you allow this increase, the investment, the social security investment, which we look from an individual perspective, where from you will get it. And we got a lot of, LIC, PPF, NSC, all clubbed together, and that to 1.5 lakh for last 10 years. It needs to be increased apart from individual perspective. There are a lot many things which we can talk about. Standard deduction for the salary, 50,000, must be increased to 1 lakh rupees. You have to allow disposable income in the hands of individual. When we are talking about consumption-based budget, we have to provide disposable income in the hands of individual. Like interest on a housing loan, 2 lakh rupees. Why this 2 lakh rupees? Why can't we increase it? And the even principal payment, when we are talking about housing for all, where from it will come? We are buying the house by taking loan. So we have to allow corresponding benefit either on interest part or principal part. And if it is not increased and keep as it is, where from housing for all will come? And that's what we are talking about. Even ATD, look at medical, COVID related, lot many things. medical is going on. What is the limit? 25,000 rupees. Why 25,000 rupees? It must be increased to 50,000, and for senior citizen, it must be increased from 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees. You talked about 80C. Why we all are talking about 80C? Are we not supposed to rationalize it? Are we not supposed to increase it further? Definitely, yes, because this is providing social security in the hands of individuals and their families. And this clubbing so many items, LIC, PPF, NSC, tuition fees, and then principal payment on housing loan. It is at the most required. That's what it looks like to me. And it is need of the hour on date.
Okay. Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, now talking about the real estate specifically, the real estate sector, something that people also used to consider as a way to invest, because there would be some kind of tax relief, that was given to the people. But of late, do you see a change in habits because of COVID, specifically in last 1 year, people moving to, other investment instruments instead of considering buying a home as, for investment?
No, I think the reverse is true. The reverse is true simply because people have been locked into their homes, and they have suddenly found value for their homes. Many of them, husband, wife, their 2 children, having their homes today required to be on the computer, on their laptops, either studying in their classes, also the husband and wife both working, and so on. So the size of the home is required to be upgraded, and larger sizes of home, provided, of course, they can afford it or they are able to get necessary loans due to their income brackets, collectively or singly, in order to do it. So actually the demand for homes because of the COVID situation has actually increased and improved rather than reduced. However, of course, there are segments where the people's salaries have been cut, or they've gone out of business, or MSMEs have actually lost the businesses completely. In those segments, there's no question of buying a house or going in improvement in other sectors. So travel, tourism, aviation, media, parts of real estate in that sense, all of them have been affected very badly, and obviously the demand from this segment is not there. But this is more than compensated by other segments of the economy, which are actually demand-driven, which is taking place not only in the affordable segment, but also into the upgrades of housing, which is taking place. And more of these people are taking home loans.
But Dr. Hiranandani, sorry to interrupt you there. Is it still being seen as an investment option by the middle class specifically? That, that used to be the case earlier. Is that trend there?
The answer is yes. There is an option that people are buying for the purposes of investments, but more and more have been diverted to the capital markets. The stock exchanges are showing higher returns at this present time. So more people are incrementally investing into stock market. But there are still people who are investing into real estate, and in a very big way in terms of doing that, and have come back by selling off stocks at the highest prices today, and are going back into the real estate as being safer investments over a period of time, and also fulfilling the needs of their children in the future and other things. So yes, the answer is yes. The investment into the real estate has again started picking up, but it's selective. As compared to what it was universally, you will find it selective with certain developers, credible people. And of course, RERA has given confidence that delivery of the buildings in terms of the projects will happen. So the investments have increased over a period of time.
Do you see this budget making buying a house cheaper to boost demand in the sector further?
See, today what has happened, many of the investment facilities given by the government in the central government have not increased employment. Even in the case of manufacturing, the employment potential of investment is lower. But in the case of real estate and infrastructure, the multiplier effect, and also IT, the multiplier effect in these sectors is huge and tremendous. So the number of people per crore of rupees in terms of investment into real estate or infrastructure and these type of sectors the number of people getting employed is huge, either directly or indirectly. So any country in the world which has ever had double-digit GDP growth has happened only because they have also got investments incrementally taking place in real estate and infrastructure. So you will not be able to see any Western country which is more than 5% GDP growth. Europe is not there. Japan is not there. But countries where they had focused on housing, where they had focused on infrastructure, whether they had focused on development infrastructure, and they were able to do employment and also increase the GDP at a double digit, which is the target of our Prime Minister, and wanting to reach the $5 trillion economy. So it's imperative, if you want employment to come up again, to invest into these sectors.
Okay, interesting views there. Let me go back to Ms. Monica Hallan once again. Ms. Monica, there was this discussion in the debate about increasing the limit of ATC from 1.5 to 3 lakh. Do you see that happening? Do you think something should be done now? Because that is what can really help the salaried class.
Yeah, I think possibly this might be the year that we will see a hike in the ATC limit. But I am not in favor of putting walls within this limit. So let's assume from 1.5 it goes to 3 lakh for the sake of an experiment. Even if it goes to 3 lakh, I think it's a good idea to let people decide what they want to do. Because if you look at the full basket of ATC, it's been constructed very carefully so that a person who's starting out, who doesn't have extra money to invest, can take the school fees of 2 children and offset his ATC limit against that. For a retired person, there is a fixed deposit, a special fixed deposit, 5-year fixed deposit. A retired person can invest in that fixed deposit for regular income and avail that ATC benefit. For a mutual fund investor, there's the ELSS. For a term life insurance buyer, there is the insurance. So, it's been constructed in a certain way which looks after different segments of the society who at one point may not have money to invest but have spending, and on the other spectrum may be retired and may want income. My gut is that since RBI has gone direct, it's gone direct to the retail investor. It's still an experiment stage. It's still not taken off properly, but we might see some of those securities getting added to the basket of ATC so that investment, that money goes directly from the household to the government when it buys GSECs through the RBI Direct. We might see that getting included. And for retail investors, that's gilt-edged. That's the best way to actually have safe returns. So yes, I think we might see an increase in that limit. But no, I don't think we should put walls at all. We should allow people to choose what they want to choose. There are a lot, I think there are 14, 15 things that you can choose from. So let's not take choice off the table.
Okay, but then Ms. Monica, if the focus of the government is going to be on increasing the purchasing power, which is a huge concern right now, low purchasing power, would this not then block the money of people, because government would want them to spend immediately, and most of the instruments that are there within this ATC slab, they are for long term.
Right. So, that's what I'm saying. There's a tightrope for the government where at some point you're trying to give benefit by giving larger tax breaks, which is coming through deductions, and deductions means you've got to save more. And you can boost spending, consumption by lowering tax rates. So that's the tightrope that they will have to walk, that if indeed they reduce tax rates, will that money go towards more saving, or will it go towards more consumption? And I don't think anybody can predict really what the household is going to do. The GST question is out of this budget, right? So the entire indirect tax, goods and services tax, it doesn't fall in the purview of the budget. So that's not something that the budget can address in terms of making goods more expensive or cheaper. The only thing they can do is give more money to the people through lower tax rates, and then incentivize some of the people who want to save by giving a larger deduction limit.
So you see then maybe some changes as far as the standard deduction amount is concerned. It was increased from 40,000 to 50,000, but with the healthcare expenses going up, that can be another option that the government can consider, something that middle class will be very happy about.
Correct. So this will be more a feel-good thing that yes, you suddenly have, you can, your taxable income, your gross taxable income goes down if that standard deduction number goes up. So we may see tinkering with some of these numbers in this budget because I think the middle class needs to feel good. I think that time is this year that they do something for this middle class so that they can go out and actually spend some of this money.
Okay. Amit Singhania, of course, the focus is going to be on what happens as far as direct taxes are concerned. And as Ms. Monica mentioned, that this is the time to do something for the middle class because of how the situation has been for everyone. So one or two things which are feasible for the government to do in this budget, in your opinion?
So my take is, suppose if I were to choose 2 or 3 budgetary announcement for the middle class, so I will choose first of all increase into the slab rate from the existing 2.5 lakhs to 5 lakh. That means there should not be any income tax liability till the time you are earning 5 lakhs of rupees. Although there is in the existing system also there is a rebate system, but rebate benefits only a small section of the taxpayer. So there should be a blanket no income tax liability if your gross total income is up to rupees 5 lakh. This is going to give a much needed break to the middle class. This is going to give cash in the hands of the middle class. This is going to increase the purchasing power. My second take would be to increase the housing loan deduction. So currently the housing loan interest on the housing loan is capped at 2 lakhs rupees. So my proposal would be to increase it to 5 lakhs rupees. This will have a multiple effect. Not only it is going to give break to the middle class, so this will also infuse the necessary purchasing power with the real estate sector. More and more people may be tempted to employ or deploy their fund for the purpose of buying the house and avail the housing loan, considering that the interest on the housing loan is already at all-time low. Coupled with this particular deduction may attract the attention of the middle class toward the real estate sector, and this could be the big ticket for the real estate sector. My third thing would be to increase the standard deduction from existing 40 or / 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees. This is going to give some kind of benefit to the salaried middle class because already they are working from home. They are already incurring some extra expenses from working from home. They are already suffering from the inflation, again touching to the new high. So it's not too much of money, but at least it will give some kind of a respite without adding too much of cost to the exchequer.
Okay. Bimal Jain, now one thing is clear that, with GST Council in place, not too much of changes can be expected as far as the, tax rates on various goods and services are concerned in the budget. The one thing can be excise duty on petrol or diesel. Other thing can be, the import duty specifically on gold. That has also been a cause of concern. Do you see that changing this time?
I'd like to clarify here that Ms. Monica was referring that this union budget does not have any GST, changes. Last 4 years since the day GST got introduced, we have seen the changes made in GST in finance bill. So first of all, even though this union budget does not require to have GST changes, but last 4 years continuously we have seen they have made certain changes in GST law by putting in finance bill, first part. Second part, when you're referring to that GST rate, which we are referring to, yes, this is the important one. And we all are talking about rationalization of GST rate. It is very important. One thing I would like to clarify here, higher the rate and we do not get
how
that much
can budget really help with that? Because if we are talking about rationalization of GST rates, that will be done by GST Council, not by the finance minister via the budget.
I'm not saying that during the budget they are going to do any rate rationalization for GST rate, but at least a roadmap. Trade and industry is asking for their 6th rate 0.25%, 3%, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. At least a roadmap by when this discussion was there, when then Honorable Finance Minister Arun Jaitley ji, late Arun Jaitley ji was there. He has given a proposal 2 to 3 rate. Maybe in union budget, in her statement, Honorable Finance Minister can say what they're discussing in GST Council pertaining to the GST rate and rate rationalization. Let me tell you, once you rationalize the rate, your taxpayer base goes up. Now, talking about on gold import duty, now 7.5% is being charged as a basic custom duty on import of gold. What the industry is demanding, it must be reduced. Why it must be reduced? There's a reason for the same. The tax evasion happen when you see the higher rate. So what we have to find out, check and balances. Just putting the rate on higher side or we want to done away with the tax evasion, I don't think that is the right approach. What we have to do, we have to provide level playing field, competitive field for this gold industry. Import rate, a basic custom duty, if reduced from 7.5% to 5% and allowing level playing field for them, then definitely I'm telling you, reducing the rate, rationalizing the rate, increase your tax base and your revenue also. When you talk about petroleum, inflation is an important factor which we are finding. And why inflation? Because we are having excise duty, VAT, and lot of other levies levied on petroleum product. And petroleum product is out of GST. That's the reason it is adding inflation because of transportation costs, fuel costs, etc. Of course, government must look into that how they can minimize this particular, central excise duty and request the state government.
Well, Dr. Hiranandani, we all expect that, every budget is going to solve all our problems, but eventually, not much really happens when the budget announcements come on 1st of February every year. You've all given us a wish list for the finance minister. I want to ask you, Dr. Hiranandani, about your sort of budget request, something that you really want to see in the budget this time with an eye on middle class and their requirements specifically that should happen.
I am all for giving money and reliefs to industry because I'm part of industry. But I see it is grossly unfair that corporate tax should be 25% and individual tax can go to 42%. I think we have to bring down the tax rate of individuals down to 25%. And the collection, I promise the finance minister and this government and the prime minister that it will double the collections which are there because a large number of people all over the country hide tax because they do not want to pay 42%. So my pleading to this government is match the rate of corporate tax with individual tax at the maximum rate and rationalize, as was suggested by all my beloved panelists, to rationalize those rates at the lower rate accordingly.
Okay, I want to give you the last word, Ms. Monica. What will be your budget request for budget 2022? Something that should be done, that needs to be done in the current circumstances.
I've been asking for tax democracy for a very long time. You have to find a way to get people into paying income tax. Everybody pays taxes, everybody pays indirect taxes, but we just need to find a way to get people to share the burden. And this is something that each one of us can do. People who pay taxes, I think it's time that we start socially calling out people who don't. And, saying that my consumption is like this because, I pay taxes. So I think this movement has to gain ground where people who pay their fair share begin to call out people who don't. So it's going to be a twin-pronged approach where the government goes after people who don't pay and people who pay taxes also start calling out people who don't pay.
Well, those are some very interesting suggestions that we've got on the show today. I appreciate all of you for joining us here on this episode of Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Of course, there is a long wish list for middle class this year as well, but we'll see what eventually is announced on 1st of February by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Middle class clearly is expecting some relief this time around. With this, we will slip into a very, very short break, but there's lots lined up for you on the other side as well. We'll tell you you what's happening as far as the 5 states are concerned where elections are likely to happen in just a few days from now.